relationships, they're seasonal. Some last an entire lifetime. Some come and provide healings for each other, and then they're complete. So there's different levels of that. And you don't want to be too naive to think that everything is to last a certain way forever. I mean, you can grow and develop and unfold together,
right?
You see? Or you could be mature enough to realize, oh, this part of our relationship is over. Maybe it's business that's over and you're friends. Maybe you keep the friendship. Maybe, you know. And so inside here is where the management occurred. Once we realized that was it. You know, Ricky said, I don't want to be married anymore. You know, then there's, you know, the movement of the emotions and embracing that. And then you got to surrender. You got to let go. You can't, I wish I woulda, coulda, shoulda. Can't live there. You know. So once it was like, this is, we're really doing this.
Right.
Then it was full acceptance of that.
Right.
You know, just full acceptance of, okay, that relationship is over, and that way. You know. And I never really had any, once I made that announcement to the congregation, I never really had any issue with the congregation. I think there were a couple of people, like one lady was in the choir, came up to me and she said, Reverend Michael, I love you, I don't like you right now. You know, I said, you minding my business? You know,
right.
Do you have a perspective that you're getting from somewhere that may or may not be true? You know, but that was like one or two people, either, and people are just staying out of my business.
Right.
I said, because you're not coming to classes or retreats or the center because there's a couple,
right,
or a teacher even. You're coming to do your own work. I can't meditate for you. Right. You've got to meditate. I can't do your affirmations. I can't do your studying. You have to do that. I can just be an example. So I just sought to just walk through this elegantly, in a very elegant way. You know, I have nothing but good to say about Ricky Byers.
Right.
You'll never hear anything other than who she is as a genius. You know.
And what do you feel like, because I got an email about this conscious uncoupling, so I feel like a lot of people are in this place where they're like, okay, I'm in this relationship, it's great, we've grown, but it's ending. And so what advice would you give people who are going through?
I think that when you understand that you're entering into a relationship in the beginning to grow, that other person does not have your happiness, and you don't have that other person's happiness. And one of the things that people say in the immature state is, she didn't make me happy, or he didn't make me happy. Well, that's a very immature comment. Because if you want somebody to make you laugh and happy, you hire a clown. You don't get married. You know what I mean? Right. You hire a comedian. Ooh, he's making me happy. You know, you enter into a relationship basically to grow together.
Right.
And so that growth and unfoldment may last an entire relationship, or you may find yourself complete. So if you go into it not in a naive way, then it's easier. I mean, it's still pain.
Right.
There's still like emotional trauma, you know. But if you go into it from a spiritually immature way, like some religions, like Christianity, for as an example, trap people stay together forever to sin, to divorce, and this kind of thing. But if you look in our indigenous cultures who've been around thousands of years, America's only 200 years old. It's a baby. Okay, it has high technology, but the breadth of wisdom is not what's carried in like the Lakotas or the African communities, who thousands of years of being a community. You know, in some of the Native American cultures, you re-up every 7 years. You get married, have kids, whatever, and every 7 years you come together and you say, are we good? Do we want to do another 7? Are we growing together? Are we not? Have we completed this relationship? And so that's built into the dynamic is the fact that we could change and grow like this. Not in terms of friendship or being in each other's heart, but in terms of the dynamic of a couple. In the African tradition, the same thing. You may have known of Malidoma Some. You know, he and his wife were together for many years. The first wife he had, and workshops together. They were a power couple. And then they realized, this is complete. They flew back to their village, sat with the elders. The elders did their divination and all the stuff that they do, and said, yeah, You guys are complete. And they got permission from the ancestors and from the community to part. You know, and that was built into. You know, you don't enter into a relationship to break up.
Right.
You go full on. And then you realize, oh, I've healed this area of my life, or this is over, this is not working, I can't live with this, whatever it is, then it may be complete. And then it's easier then to uncouple. Right. You know. And so I think that, you know, the marriages that I do, built into the marriage are certain things. Like you don't compare your relationship with anybody else's. Right. You don't say to the other person, don't change. Instead, you say, we're coming together to change and grow. You know, you never, ever, if you're going through problems, tell somebody outside of your relationship the issues you're going through. It's immature. And a counselor, yes. Right. You know, but not a friend that can't hold the vision of your relationship. Right. You know what I mean? Because once you do that, then that thought goes out. Let's say you're mad at your mate for whatever. Right. And you go out and tell somebody, then now they're holding your mate in a certain perception. Now you may have come back and healed, forgiven, realized you were wrong, or whatever the case may be. Right. But community members are now looking at him or her, and that's creating like a metaphysical bubble around you. Right. You don't want that. Right. So you never, ever share if you're going through a hard time. You can share the testimony when you've gone through it. Right. But while you're growing through it, you only share that with someone that can kick your butt if your perception is off, or help you mend. Right. You know, so I bring that into a relationship with people, so they understand this is not fun and games. Right. It is fun, but it ain't games. You know what I mean? It's fun, and changes are going to happen. Right. And the people that are getting married aren't going to be the same people 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It ain't like, you know, you're gonna be different, and you have to find out 5 years from now, 8 years from now, do these different people, would they get married again? You know? Right. Some people have the re-ceremonies, they get married, they have a renewal, renew their vows. Because, I want to keep doing this. Right. And some people are like, maybe not. There's nothing wrong with you, but we don't need to be together in this kind of relationship. You know, I was speaking to a woman, and you know, her and her husband got a divorce, but they still live together. They had a big house. They said, it's better for us just to be friends. You know, and she said, I said, well, how long have you guys been living together? She said, 14 years. Wow. I said, really? She said, hey, he's like the best roommate I ever had. You know what I'm saying? Right. But she said, but being married to him and the different expectations we had of each other, it didn't work. You know? Yeah. So I think that people need to give themselves freedom rather than to have this rigid image of what it should look like. I tell people in marriage ceremonies, your relationship is not governed by the state. Right. It's governed by your state of consciousness. You know, and we're all growing. So there's probably friends that you don't have now that don't fit with who you are today that may have been in your life 15 years ago. Absolutely. We're just different. You're just so completely different. You know, and you may have had relationships back then. They would never work now. Right. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not a bad person. Right. They're not evil. But it doesn't fit with your core now. Right, absolutely. You know? Yeah.
I think it's so important for people to know, because the way, especially being raised and transitioning to a different mindset, or opening your mind to a different consciousness than what you were taught or what most of society is following, I think it's very difficult for a lot of people. Yeah. And I feel like having someone like yourself who's been through it, gone through it, and grown through it is really important. Right.
Growth is not over.
Right.
You know, somebody, I mentioned this to someone, I was on a radio program, and somebody was asking me about my relationship, you know, different questions. And they said, and I've been married, this is my second marriage. They said, well, you've had 2 failed relationships, and blah, blah, blah. I said, no, I haven't. I said, I've had 2 very successful relationships. I said, my first marriage was with my high school sweetheart. Right. We had 2 very beautiful kids. They have beautiful hearts, the great contribution to society. I got grandkids. I said, and I spent Christmas with her.
Right.
And her husband, with my kids. That's a very successful transition, very successful relationship.
Right.
I said my second marriage was with a musician. We wrote hundreds of songs together. We produced a lot of programs together, touched the lives of millions of people. Very successful.
Right.
Now we're not together in an intimate, romantic way anymore, but that was a very successful relationship. I said, I will let no one determine my narrative for my life.
Absolutely.
You know, my narrative, I had two very powerful relationships with two very beautiful women. I'm very happy about that.